What's up, y'all? I'm genuinely not shocked about people's actions any longer. I mean, people may catch me off guard every once in a while. Maybe they surprise me with an action or two, but generally speaking, I'm not shocked at people's actions any longer because people can't see beyond their own little bubble that they're in. And at the end of the day, regardless of managers, owners, business owners, leaders, wanting to affect change for those groups in which they're responsible for, a lot of them can't see beyond their own vision. They don't know how to collaborate with other team members. They don't know how to, reach across the aisle with those that are in opposition to them to come together and work to really try to affect some positive change for all stakeholders involved. I'm generally frustrated with today's corporate market, and more specifically those managers that operate within it, for those aforementioned reasons. There's a lot of selfishness, and people only think about themselves when they are in their decision-making process. It's frustrating to work with. It's frustrating to work subordinate to it. It's frustrating to work across it, and I'd imagine from a client's perspective, it gets frustrating when you have someone who's always working an angle that only suits their needs. I like to be that leader that always looks at what's beneficial for my client. I like to look for that which is beneficial to the organizations that I'm representing. Of course, I would like to make things as less cumbersome on myself as possible, but that isn't always the deciding factor. And good leaders and good managers will always look at what's best for all the stakeholders. How is this going to affect the employees? How is this going to affect the client? How is it going to affect the managers involved? Are you dealing with patrons? How it's going to affect that? How is it going to affect our bottom line, right? How is it going to affect their cost? Because obviously, if you're providing a service, there's costs that are associated with that. And, corporations only get into that, is the number green or is the number red? Okay. And then they focus on turning those greens to reds. We got to get in the green, without really considering that in the process of that, are you straining relationships along the way that could possibly get you to lose that client, and then ultimately get you to lose the client, period. They just, you're done. Now you lost that business. Now you're completely in the red, right? Seems simple, but again, when people are so centered around just their little bubble and they never really step out to the macro, they don't understand. They don't understand the big perspective of how their day-to-day decisions affect the overall change in an organization. What I like to do is I'll get into the weeds when needed, but for the most part, I like to really kind of just step back and evaluate how things are operating, and then make minute changes here and there, little adjustments. If I see that something is not working and I've already applied certain amount of like mitigating changes to that, and it is still not working, guess what? We're going to cut that branch off, and we're going to rebuild that portion, right? But those are those situations don't happen very often, and very, very seldom do I really feel like, hey, I got to cut an entire branch off of what's going on. I see all too often, somebody is feeling a little bit of pressure, and then they feel the need to just, oh, let me change everything right now. And then they are wasting time because now they have to rebuild the entire thing instead of just making fine adjustments as you go along, and really paying attention and standing out on the macro, trusting leaders that are subordinate to you to do their job, maybe provide some guidance, and let people surprise you, let them fail. We as leaders, sometimes we have a propensity to jump in when someone is failing because we don't want it to see it crumble. Let it fail real quick. Guess what? They're going to learn a lesson from it. Provide, make it a teaching moment, right? Have a quick after action review and say, hey, what went right? What went wrong? What are we keeping? What are we not? And then go back to start paying attention to the focus on the other things that may, that may be failing, or things that need little adjustments here. And maybe that person that you were providing that guidance to, maybe they'll start to get it and get it. But go back and check up on it. You have that obligation as a leader to be able to provide that guidance to them. And then that oversight. It's also your responsibility. That's what being accountable is. You're accountable for all the successes and all the failures. You can't just be there when things go right and be like, haha, yeah, I did that. When things go wrong, you also have to be like, yeah, I'm responsible for that. I could have done something different to mitigate that from happening. I could have did something to prevent this adverse action from being able to affect the organization in that way, right? So, I guess the point of all this is that it's beneficial sometimes to kind of step back as you're trying to be a leader, and don't micromanage the situation. Think outside of the bubble every once in a while, right? More often than not, you should probably think outside of the bubble. Get outside of your perspective, get other people's perspective, and understand how those things conflict with yours, and then figure out a way to maybe compromise your views on things and maybe take it in a different direction that might be a bit more beneficial for everybody involved. Don't be selfish. That's my thoughts for the day. Hope you all have a good one.